All right, welcome to everybody to another edition of The Truth About Addiction and Recovery. Today's a special edition because a good friend of mine is here. I'm Scott Jones, and we've got Mark Astor here. Mark is the founder of Drug and Alcohol Attorneys. Mark, how are you?
Well, it's good. You know, it's been a while since you and I were in the studio together. And
it's been a very long time.
Too long,
a couple of years at least.
Right?
Yeah.
The good news is neither one of us looks that much older than the last time we saw each other.
Well, I am. It's just the lighting. We changed the lighting.
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't have anything that was looking back down in the back because I think I've lost a little sod on the fairway, you know?
Yeah, well, I've started doing this thing where I cut the side short, but I keep the top long to keep combing it back. Pretty soon I'm just going to grow the beard and comb it right up over the top.
Well, I've been working on the beard. My better half likes it, but it takes me like days and days and days before it starts to grow in, and then I look like I haven't washed my face, for about a week. So that's
terrific. You look healthy. You look happy.
From the neck
going
down,
well in your life, right?
Yeah, I was telling you, I met somebody real special, and so she's a little bit younger than me, but she's really put me in my place, and it's really given me some focus and direction.
Excellent.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
That's great, and I hope I get to meet her sometime.
You will.
What's her first name?
First name's Tara.
Tara?
Tara, T-A-R-A. So she's going to hear this.
That's my stepdaughter's name. Tara.
How about that?
T-A-R-A.
Well, I hope it's not the same girl. We could.
If it is, you got some problems because she's 16.
No, this girl's not 16.
You said she was younger.
A little bit younger, not that much younger. I don't want to get myself arrested, you know?
No. Well, hey, listen, you know attorneys if you do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Drug and alcohol attorneys. That sounds interesting. What exactly do you mean when you're saying that?
So we take calls literally from all over the country, typically mums and dads, but sometimes spouses, siblings, and they call us because their loved ones are in crisis because of substance use, mental illness, or eating disorders. And they call us we're really sort of the last port of call because they are sort of sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
They can't get their loved ones to go in treatment, or they can't get their loved ones to stay in treatment long enough so they can experience recovery. So they call us to help them to get their loved one into treatment and make sure they stay there long enough.
So we're not talking about people who get arrested on drug charges call you, although I'm sure you get those too.
Yeah, we do.
You're talking about families and friends who are concerned, especially families who are concerned about somebody who is on a pattern of destruction. You can help them.
Yeah, and so we typically are practicing in one of three arenas.
Okay.
So we do a little bit of criminal work, but again, it's focused around substance use. So we get those folks who have been arrested, either drug possession, some type of mental health breakdown that caused them to do something they would never normally do.
Right.
And so the goal obviously is to get them out of the system as quickly as possible, because once you're in the system, if you keep coming back, at some point, someone is going to lock you out and throw the key away. So we do some of that too, but the bulk of the practice is either guardianship work, which deals primarily with mental illness, or the Marchman Act, which is what I handle most of the time, which deals with primary substance use cases.
All right, well, let's talk about that, because we've heard, especially down here in South Florida, with all of the treatment centers and the problems with the opioid crisis down here. We've heard a lot about Baker Act and Marchman Act and all these other things. Could you give us a little background on what each of these things are?
Sure. So the Baker Act is an involuntary commitment statute that basically allows either some type of qualified professional like a licensed mental health counselor or a police officer to involuntarily commit somebody and have them held for up to 72 hours because of some type of mental health issue which has caused them either to be a danger to themselves and or others. So it's really just a Band-Aid on what is typically a much larger problem.
And as we know, the mental health issues many times do accompany other addiction issues.
Oh. Totally, 100%. So it's you're not getting a pure substance use case, right? There's always something going on.
Right.
And sometimes it's, you're figuring out chicken and egg. So sometimes we get people who have been, quote, Baker Acted, right? They've been taken to a facility where they're held, and then the parents call us, or the siblings call us, or the spouse calls us and say, hey, this is what's going on. So a lot of the time, those cases can transition into a Marchman Act case. So the Marchman Act case is Florida's involuntary commitment statute for people who have primary substance use and co-occurring mental illness. And in a nutshell, it basically allows me to get somebody into treatment for periods of up to 90 days. So our average client works with me for about 6 months. So we might do 90 days, 90 days. I have some clients that have gone 9 months, who went 90, 90, 90. And the minimum case I'll even take or look at is where there's a 3-month commitment. Because I know if we have a good case, I'm going to want to keep that person in treatment for 3 months. That's when I'm going to have the judge order. So it's a real powerful tool.
Absolutely. So the Marchman Act takes a little bit more time So that's why sometimes the Baker Act will precede it, because it's an immediate response, and Marchman might take a few extra days. Or I'm not sure if that's
okay.
correct. Is that correct?
Well, so that's a really good question. So the Baker Act can be initiated, and I'll try not to get into too much of the legalese by police, licensed mental health counselors. The Marchman Act can also be initiated that way, because it also has a 72-hour hold provision, but it's not typically used, especially down here in South Florida. I believe in other, Central Florida, I think in Gainesville they were using it. But as a general rule, it's going to be initiated because I initiate it. So there is an emergency provision within the Marchman Act that allows me to basically get a court order and have law enforcement go out and literally pick somebody up off the street without actually physically having to go to court. And I can normally do that within 4 to 6 hours, which is ridiculously quick. And
that's great. That's great.
And I've got a retired cop on staff, Dan, who's my private investigator, is a former Palm Beach County deputy sheriff. So in Palm Beach County, which in my experience is the best place to do these things, I can normally do them real quick. And I also have one other little tool that we just recently incorporated, which is I have a licensed mental health counselor who's part of my team. So if we're talking about a situation where I need a response like now, like within the next hour, I can get them on the phone and say, Evan, I need you to go to the scene, and if this person meets Baker Act criteria, initiate a Baker Act so we know we can get the person off the street, and then we can go do the thing what we need, that we need to do with Marchman. So we've sort of got it down to a bit of a science. So
you get a lot of calls from families, I assume.
Yeah, it's typically mom, and I will tell you, I've spoken
typically mom. Yeah.
It is typically mom. I have spoken to crying moms from all over the country. I mean, as far west as California.
Okay,
and so there's a significant emotional component to what we do.
But I guess the question is for people out there listening, and maybe little Johnny or Susie's in the basement smoking pot. And they sleep too much and they're not showing up for school or for work. Is that an appropriate call? Where do they see that where this is an appropriate level of action? Because I'm sure it's not always an appropriate level of action, right?
Yeah, it depends. So typically, when I say I use the word child generically, I'm 53 and, my mother still thinks I'm a little boy who can't do his own laundry and feed himself. And there may be some truth to that, but it's not completely true. And my girlfriend's very happy to hear that.
That's good. Okay, good.
So we're typically talking about somebody who's 18 or over. So the issue is, when do they sort of meet criteria?
Yeah.
I think the issue is their substance use issue posing a danger to themselves or others? So if they're not going to school, right, they've cut themselves off from the family, they've stopped showering, they've stopped eating, and they're spending all day in their room, on the internet or playing Xbox, and when they're not doing that, they're smoking weed or taking pills or injecting or whatever else, is the drug of choice. Yeah, I think there's an issue there. I mean, once their health has started to be threatened, there's a problem.
All right. Okay. So what we're looking for, I guess the key word here is if there's a dramatic change that is taking them in a serious direction, it's worth it to make the call. Now, if somebody were to call you, do you help them figure out whether it is appropriate or not? Or I guess there's got to be some sort of almost triage that you do before you start doing something.
Yeah, we triage the case. Exactly. That's the appropriate term.
Okay.
So normally it takes me about 15 minutes to figure out, one, if I can help the person, and two, if they want the help, because it's a serious commitment of time, energy, and money, and not every family that calls us is ready to take that action. So that's the other element that we have to deal with. Are you ready to do this? I mean, the finances aside, if this is an emergency situation, I'm going to send the police out with my investigator to pick your loved one up and take them somewhere. Are you ready for that? And for some parents, that's a big leap, right? They're just not ready for that. But there are other families that call me and they're like, look, my loved one has been into half a dozen treatment centers. This has been going on for 10 years. And we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on treatment. They never stay longer than 30 days. And within 24 hours of getting out, there's a relapse. And we're tired of it. We just can't do it anymore. It's destroying the family. The parents are getting divorced. The other siblings don't want to know from it. I mean, that's why they call it a family disease.
Yeah.
It really will destroy. It's like cancer in the family. It will destroy the whole family.
So there's a lot of situations that I know, and I want to get more into the history about some of this in a minute. But right now, I'm thinking there's a lot of people that come down here for the specific idea of getting treatment.
Yep.
Loved ones, a lot of times the younger members of the family and the parents send them to Florida to treatment centers, and they end up in that Florida shuffle, so to speak. And, I obviously want to qualify that by saying there are a lot of good treatment centers out there, but there are some that have made much profit off of not doing very good work, and we know this. They are being eliminated. But if this family is in, let's say, up in Ohio, and their son or daughter is struggling down here, and they keep running away, I mean, is this an appropriate phone call in a situation like this?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say that 90% of the cases we handle are where parents are out of state.
Yeah.
And they're sending their child, their loved one, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles in the case if they're coming from California. And what they really want is that safety net. Because on a Saturday night, if there's a relapse or somebody runs out of a treatment center, because we don't lock up we don't lock these people up, they're in treatment, they need someone to call. I mean, can you imagine sending your child from California and, finding out on a Monday morning that they've been gone for 2 days and nobody knows where they are?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. That's the safety net.
That's scary. Scary stuff.
Really scary.
We keep making assumptions, and probably we should not be doing this of the mom or the son or the daughter who's in trouble. The mom's making the call. But this Marchman and Baker Acts, all of these things, they could apply to, maybe it's one of your parents. Maybe it's a brother or sister. I mean, these all apply. It's not just for the children.
Yeah, I mean, I get calls from spouses. I had one just on Friday from the husband who was like, look, our marriage is just about over. I'm thinking, am I going to put her in treatment or am I going to divorce her? Sometimes we get calls from parents who are already divorced, but they have a child. And dad calls me and says, I can't stand my ex-wife. We don't get along. But we have a child in common, and I know that she's a good mother. And my son or daughter, they need their mother. I want her, I want mom in my child's life. And so for that reason, I'm willing to make that commitment to get her into treatment, to get her clean. Because if it's just me, I think that hurts the child that we both love.
Now, I imagine a lot of people, they become greatly concerned about their loved one. They see the change and they see other things going on, but they have no details. They don't know what drugs they're using. They don't know where they're going. They don't know any of these things. What kind of information do you need to have to do something like this? Because a lot of times the parents are in the dark. I mean, they think, they might think little Johnny's just, he'll pop a pill now and then and drink a beer. Turns out, Johnny's been doing heroin for months. If they don't have that information, can they still get help for their families?
I think it's difficult. I think what I would say to the parents is, be nosy parents. You know what I mean? Find out what's going on in your child's life. Who are they spending time with? What are they doing on the internet? I mean, I know, my girlfriend has, she's 11 older than a 9-year-old, and I have 5 nieces. I mean, my girlfriend knows what's going on with the children. She has, the put certain restrictions on what they can do on their phones and who they, where they can go on the internet. You got to be nosy, but I think there are telltale signs. I mean, when a parent calls me, like I said, typically mom, I'll say, well, how do you know your son or daughter's using? You know what they say? I just know. And you know what? They probably do. Who knows a child better than their mother? I mean, right? They do just know, and instinctively know. But when you sort of peel back layers, you find out there are certain sort of tells, red flags, right? I mean, they're starting to be absent at school. If they're working, their performance at work has been terrible. Maybe they got fired, right? Their cleanliness has changed. They suddenly don't shower more than once or twice a week. They're always in their room. They're hanging out with really strange people. They hardly ever eat. They have very little interaction with the rest of the family. I mean, there are real red flags. And sometimes I've had parents call me and say, I went into the room and I found pills, or I found little bags of white powder, or I found empty bottles of alcohol shoved in the closet or under the bed. So when you really start to look at it, there are signs there, and nosy parents can be helpful, and you should be a nosy parent.
Well, that's a scary thing that you're asking people to do, because there's a level of denial that goes along with this throughout the family, throughout the family. And I'm sure in many cases that you've gotten half the story and there's so much more, but they're afraid to face it themselves. And I guess what we want to tell them is, if you're afraid, then you've got to be brave. You've got to go forward. You've got to look at the facts for what they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I both know. I mean, this is a disease that just gets worse with time, and as a result, there's really only one of three places somebody goes when they have a substance use disorder. They go to treatment, they go to prison, or they go to the morgue. They end up dead. And I can help you if your child's in prison. I can help you to get your child into treatment. But if they're dead, I can't help you. So. And that's the reality that for some parents is tough to come to grips with. And some parents, especially if their loved one is younger, right? They're like, well, he or she they'll just get over it.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. But the weed that was around when you and I were growing up is a whole different ballgame from the weed that's around now, right? And all the stuff that it's laced with, and all the other things that the kids are using to smoke it. I mean, this stuff will cause permanent brain damage, and parents have to understand that. I mean, if your kid is 15, 16, 17, and they're smoking weed on a regular basis, they're going to lower their IQ on a permanent basis. It will permanently damage their brain.
Absolutely. You make it sound like, the weed that we grew outside the cave that we lived in, the dinosaurs walked by and ate it, and it wasn't that long ago. Things have changed fast. It was not that long ago. 15 years ago, fentanyl nobody even knew what it was.
Right.
Years before that, people didn't think of oxys. People didn't think of those things. We've had things like crocodile and flocka, and it's insane. We can't keep up with it. We've had the war on drugs for 40 years, several $1 trillion spent on the war on drugs. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed because people still are in denial. People are still not taking care of the issues that are right in their own household, whether it's the substance abuse or mental health issue. And you brought up even eating disorder as being an issue right now. How does something like that happen?
Well, so it all sort of stems from sort of some type of mental health issue going on. But in terms of, so the eating disorder cases typically fall within the guardianship window. So my partner Audra handles those types of cases. So, the guardianship statute which was really designed, for instance, when my father, before he passed away, had certainly signs of dementia and some stroke damage. Typically, guardianship would allow you to go into court, and 2-3 months later, you get a court order which allows you to make, medical, financial decisions for, your elder parent.
Sure.
We've been using the guardianship statute in a somewhat creative way and using it for those individuals where there's significant mental illness, where there's eating disorders, or maybe we just need a real long-term plan where we can, keep some control over the individual, because sometimes somebody might have a substance use disorder, but at some point, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, they're no longer going to meet criteria, and that mental health issue is still out there. So a lot of the time we'll do guardianship and Marchman. We'll do guardianship and criminal. We've done Marchman and criminal together. So sometimes it's a couple of things going on at once. But with those eating disorders, I mean, even if they're using some type of substance, to sort of self-medicate, I mean, that person is not the person who's going into what we would consider the typical treatment center where they're primary substance use. They need a whole different level of care. And maybe they're at the situation where they're going to need a medical grade level of care because they're almost critical. Their body is starting to shut down. You can't put that person in a treatment center, and they're not going to meet Marchman criteria. And even if they were using, I would never, ever recommend to a parent, you need a Marchman. You need a guardianship. You got to take a lot of control here. And if your loved one isn't willing to eat, then maybe we need a court order that says they have to be fed, with a tube or whatever it is.
Wow.
Yep. Serious stuff.
Yeah, that is. It is. Now, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, do you have a number they can call? Or
Sure. 561-419-6095 is the main number to the office.
Okay. Give that a call. It's on your screen as you're watching the show. And give them a call. Ask questions. If you're concerned, the question you don't ask, the thing you don't look at is the thing that's going to bite you in the butt. I mean, those are the things that are going to hurt you. And like you said, it's not like, okay, well, it's a minor. If I don't deal with it, it'll become an inconvenience. If you don't deal with it, somebody could die. Bad things happen.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've seen it even in the cases where we get involved. And I tell parents, like, I don't have a magic pill. I can't click my fingers and make it all go away. I mean, our goal is to keep somebody clean for 1 year. And the reason we pick 1 year is because we just know from experience, if you can get them past 1 year, they're more likely than not to stay clean. If it's less than a year, they're more likely to relapse. I mean, it's not set in stone, but I think the statistics actually bear that out, that 1 year is the marker. So, and I say, look, you don't have to work with me for a year. You don't have to even keep them in treatment for a year.
Yeah.
But if you can keep them in treatment for 6 months and they have a great aftercare program where there's a sponsor, maybe there's some clinician they can talk to, they go to meetings. Yeah, you're halfway there already.
So if somebody were to go through a Marchman Act, I'm curious. And you appear in front of a judge, and the judge places an order that they must attend treatment or whatever they must do for the 90 days. What happens if the person says, screw you, and walks away? I mean, are they in violation of a court? Have they broken the law? What exactly is it?
Yeah, so every once in a while we'll have somebody that walks out of treatment, and then I normally, will have to send my investigator out to go and find them. So the good treatment centers will immediately call the police, and then they'll immediately call me, or they'll call a loved one who calls me, so I know what's going on. And then I can sort of get Dan involved, my investigator involved, and we can go looking for them. And every once in a while, I get somebody who somehow manages to evade the jurisdiction of the court, and they go back to their home state. I just had a case recently where, girl ran back to family in Illinois, and I said, this is what you need to do. You need to go file a guardianship in Illinois and get a court order, and let's get her back here. Now, she was in Central Florida. I mean, I had half the Tampa police force looking for her because that's where we thought she was. I mean, it was all hands on deck.
Right.
So, I mean, we go looking for these kids. And then, I've also had where I've had to chase somebody all over the place. And I'll normally get them most of the time. And then it's a matter of getting them back in front of the judge, and the judge saying, look, this is a court order. And it's not like I'm telling you doing this. It's not like optional. You don't get to decide if you want to follow my court order. You're doing it. So I'm going to give you a choice. Either I'm going to put you in the county jail for a period of time, or you're going back to treatment. What do you want to do? Now, I don't know if you've ever been to the Palm Beach or Broward County Jail. They're not particularly pleasant. They're certainly a whole lot worse than any treatment center I've ever been to. So they normally go to treatment.
No, they did miss out on their 5-star rating once again. I mean, it was just barely, but that's rough. But out of all of these, you've had to have moments where you say, "This is why I do this." Or maybe you got somebody kicking and screaming at the beginning, and then they end up finding something.
Yeah, I actually, what's interesting is when I go to court, so I try to make a point of speaking to every person that I Marchman Act. Sometimes they're friendly, and sometimes they hate me. Right? Yeah. They hate me. But I'll give you an example. We had a young man that we Marchman acted. His parents were from, I think it was New York. In any event, he was a very nice young man, came from a really nice family. He was in his mid-20s, had all kinds of issues. And when I went to court with his parents, he was so rude to me, so rude to the parents. I said, I don't know how his parents put up with it. I mean, he just about got my blood boiling. We went back to court 3 months later. He was a completely different young man. Came up, shook my hand, gave me a hug, said thank you. It was like 180 degrees. And I see this a lot because it takes a little bit of time for them to get off the drugs and their brain to start to heal. And now the rational mind kicks in and says, okay, we need to keep doing this. And the life we were living before isn't going to work for us because, our subconscious mind is sort of pre-programmed to keep us away from danger.
Right.
And it equates danger with change. So that's why when you have somebody who's using, they're really kicking up a stink about going to treatment because for them, using is their status quo. Their subconscious mind says, this is the way we are. This is safe. Going to treatment is danger. And by the way, a substance abuse disorder doesn't like treatment because that pretty much means the end of the substance use disorder. Right. So when parents tell me, oh, my child they're so rude, they're in denial. I'm like, no, your child isn't even there right now. That's the disease talking to you, and we got to get rid of it so that we can get your child back in the game.
Oh yeah, these people are in the battle of their lives
for sure.
Between what has run their life and what should run their life, and it is very difficult. And I'm glad you have those moments of success.
Oh, it's amazing. It's very rewarding work. Yeah. It really is.
But there's also
look. I've also had cases where there was a relapse. I had one girl. Actually, this was for a case from New York. Her father was an Orthodox rabbi and called me up and said, my daughter's down here and she's using everything you can even think of. So I said, well, where is she? And he gave me the location. And I said, how would she like a little vacation in Boca? I said, put her in a hotel for me. So he did. And before she even, got settled, I had the police over there with my investigator. We picked her up. She had, every drug under the sun, either stuffed down her bra or in the room. It was like a crime scene. And we had her in treatment for 9 months at one of the finest treatment centers that we have down here. And after 9 months, she relapsed and she died. So occasionally we deal with those cases. And that's a tough call to get from parents. It really is. That's a crushing phone call for me to get. Because I feel a real sense of responsibility to try and save every single person I can. And it's just not feasible. And I think that's reality. We're not going to save everybody, but we can save a lot of people.
And we're talking a lot about, some of the things that you feel, and you're obviously you're seriously dedicated to this, and I knew that from a couple of years ago when we first met. Yep. And I applaud you for doing that. But you've got a staff around you. Is your entire staff this dedicated?
Sure. I mean, there's three lawyers on the team, and we're all committed to doing this stuff. And I've got a lot of other sort of peripheral members of the team,
Sure.
clinicians that I refer to, interventionists that I would refer to. So. It takes a village. I can't do it on my own.
Absolutely. You work out of Boca, but you really, that's just where an office is. You go everywhere, right?
Yeah, I've been all over the state.
All over the place.
Yeah, I'll be in Martin County tomorrow. I was in Marion County 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We've been on the west coast of Florida. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna have an overage on my lease on my car when I give it back at the end of the year.
You're really pushing your luck there. You're pushing it. So I want to encourage people to call you. Things are different now. We have to take extreme measures. A TV ad saying just say no. Listen, we're past that. We're past those moments of an educational TV spot is going to make a difference in somebody's life. It has to be, somebody has to intervene. And that intervention has to be done by somebody who loves them to make a change. And you're there to help them do that. You could be making a whole lot more money if you went into corporate law or did something else, I'm sure.
Oh, I've been down there. I hated it. That's not what I do this because I love it and it gives me tremendous personal satisfaction.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's exhausting work, but I mean, I get out of bed every morning with a real sense of purpose.
And thank God you do that because somebody has to be doing that. And we appreciate everything you do for the families and the communities and everyone else. Again, it's a tough time. It's a tough job, emotionally, mentally, physically draining. But the reward is so amazing.
Yep.
To watch somebody grow and change. I wanted to point out that this show, The Truth About Addiction and Recovery, is sponsored by Addiction Training Center, ATC. Addiction Training Center is a company that Karen and I started that we train people as interventionists throughout
Karen.
the country. Oh, is Karen the best or what?
It was so good to see her this morning. She's amazing.
She is amazing. And we train people to become interventionists. We train people on education and how to communicate and how to make connections with people who are in crisis and how to help them. We've been traveling a lot. We're all over the place. If you'd like to learn more about Addiction Training Center, you can go to addictiontrainingcenter.com or you can call our toll-free number at 833-254-1234. And, Karen answers the phone all the time. Me, I don't, but she does. So that's a good thing. That's why we're partners. And we would love to tell you more about that. But this show and a lot of other shows we do would not be possible without ATC. So
I love the work that you guys are doing. And if I can, because we get a lot of calls from parents who don't have the resources to hire us. If they go to my website, there's an ebook that I wrote. They can download it for free. There is about 100 Q&A videos they spent a ton of money on that are basically questions that, mums and dads from all over the country have gone online, asked us questions, and I went and answered them on a video format. So if they go to the website or YouTube, there is a ton of information about the Marchman Act and the guardianship and the criminal what we do, and I give it away for free so everybody can find it. And if after seeing that they want to have a conversation with me, they can call me.
And what's your website again?
So it's drugandalcoholattorneys.com.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
yeah, I'm having enough coffee this morning. Or they can email me, Mark with a K, so it's mark@drugandalcoholattorneys.com, and I'll send them the link or I'll just send them the ebook.
All right, and we have the phone number on the screen, so we want people to call. I have to point out, just elephant in the room, people who don't know you, you've got the best Jersey accent I've ever heard.
That?
Yeah, it's great. It's Jersey, right?
Yeah. Well, I always tell people it's like my hair, but it's going. It's going slowly, but it is definitely going. That's why I said to you, don't video from up top.
Mark, I hope you come back, be on the show again.
Thanks for having me.
Sometime soon,
good
right?
To see you.
Good to see you too. You also do a lot of your own work on YouTube and with your podcast, so everybody should be looking out for that as well.
Yep, The Journey. That's what we call it. That's what I call
The Journey.
Yep.
All right, and your YouTube channel and everything?
YouTube. There's also all the shows are on the website. I mean,
beautiful.
It's good stuff.
Beautiful. I'd love to stop by and be on your show sometime.
Oh, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
All right. So thanks for watching The Truth About Addiction and Recovery. Scott Jones with our friend Mark Astor. We'll catch you next time.